There's been another spanner thrown in the works today by one of the country's creditors. Let's hear about that now. Jameel Ahmad, who's a market analyst and vice president of corporate development at ForexTime, tells us more.
But what's happened really today, this morning, is that the IMF have been quite critical that the bailout package is perhaps a little bit harsh on Greece. I think the consensus was when the deal was announced on Monday was that the Eurogroup really made an example of Greece, that Greece is desperate for money and really they needed a deal to be agreed. So this is kind of what the major story is today.
So what will the impact on the markets be then from this story about the IMF? Do you think that the creditors will listen to the IMF and give them this debt relief or not?
No, to be honest. I think this is very much what the deal was the deal. I think what the message was last week was that, look, this is going on for way too long. I think these negotiations have been, over 5 months, ongoing, continuous. And I think this is very much what the creditors are offering Greece. What the impact on the market has been, was there was an initial reaction towards buying the euro when the deal was announced on Monday, and there was a bounce in major European indices. But there's a little bit of caution since then. I think the main reason why is that just waiting for the MPs to pass on the package and agree on it. I think obviously there is going to be some caution that if the general consensus is that the deal is pretty harsh on Greece, that there is a risk that maybe the Greek Parliament won't agree to it. So maybe that's why there's been a bit of caution in the markets today. But hopefully this all just gets settled, because it's better for everybody. I mean, the Greece economy has fallen back into a recession since these talks began. Everybody knows that the government, the country itself, it really needs cash. It needs to open up its banking system again. I think what the risk would be is obviously if the deal gets rejected, then we do go back towards this, we're getting really close to a Brexit. So I think that would result in obviously a lot of pressure on global indices, global markets, but you would in particular look at the European indices. Now, in regards to the euro itself, specifically against the dollar, it's very much toying with a psychological level right now, which is 110. And what investors are enjoying, the educated traders, is that the euro, for it to be bearish against the dollar and resume its trend back towards parity, what really needs to happen is the euro-dollar needs to close on a daily candlestick below 110. And I think this is what the sellers are waiting for, and it would inspire some downside momentum. But for as long as the euro is not closing below 110, actual buyers are seeing a short-term opportunity.
So if it doesn't go through tonight then, because I know that a lot of the coalition partners in Greece's government have spoke this week out against it, so there is that risk there as well. What would happen with Greece, do you think? Do you think they go back to the old drachma, or would it be a new currency altogether, do you believe?
Yeah, I think this is the problem, is that one of the reasons why the markets were very slow to react to the risk, and to be honest, largely underpriced the risk until about 2 weeks ago, is because there's just a lot of unknown global implications as to what actually happens if Greece does default. Does it leave the Eurozone? What happens to Greece? I mean, obviously the consensus is that things economically would get a lot worse in the short term, but there is also uncertainty over what currency does it use. The drachma is what people think would return, but how will it be valued? I mean, how do you price it against the major currencies?
This is Drive Live.
So that was Danny Norton speaking to Jameel Ahmad, who's a market analyst and vice president of corporate development at ForexTime. Just taking a look at the situation in Greece today. Of course, we're counting down the hours now until we find out whether or not they accept that third bailout deal. We'll have more details later from Jack Parrick, who will be crossing to later in the program just after 6 o'clock tonight. He's based in Brussels.